Terra, a megalopolis that never sleeps, submerged in the dazzling glow of neon lights and the frantic pace of life. At the heart of that city, in a luxurious yet unbelievably chaotic penthouse apartment, Leo Walker, one of Orbis Core's top experts, was sprawled on the sofa, nursing a splitting headache. The apartment air was thick with the stale smell of alcohol. Beer cans were scattered everywhere, and a few pieces of old pizza were stuck under the pillows. The holoscreen was still on, flashing reminder notifications from his virtual assistant. A voice sounded from the smart speaker in the corner of the room.
Good morning, Mr. Leo. Reminder, your blood alcohol content currently exceeds the legal limit for driving, or making important decisions.
Leo let out a pained groan. Shut up, Echo. But the virtual assistant system did not have a be considerate function.
In addition, your body temperature is higher than normal. This is likely a side effect of consuming a large amount of alcohol, combined with falling asleep on the sofa with a single sock draped across your face.
Leo frantically touched his face. There was indeed a sock.
Today's schedule, Orbis Corp board meeting at 8 a.m. It is currently 11:37 a.m. You have missed the meeting.
Leo groaned again, burying his face in his hands. Damn it. What did I do last night? He struggled to open the hollow record to review the end of last night's meeting. As soon as the recording started, Leo's image appeared on the screen: messy hair, bloodshot eyes, holding a glass of wine and staggering in front of the camera. And then, Leo witnessed himself throwing up directly at the camera, turning the important meeting into a disastrous comedy. The board members were stunned, some grimaced in disgust, while Orbis Core's CEO, Henry Vale, simply sighed and shook his head. I'm sure it's because of stress. I need time to sort my life out. He had made that excuse, but deep down he knew he was living like a deadbeat drunk with no end in sight. Leo closed his eyes, bracing himself for a termination email. But there was nothing. His phone vibrated, pulling him out of his thoughts. A message from Orbis Corp displayed an unexpected message.
Dear Leo, we recognize that you are having difficulty balancing your personal and professional life. To better support you, Orbis Corp has decided to provide you with a special gift, a high-end AI personal assistant. She will help you organize your life, ensuring you can focus fully on your work.
Leo reread the message, not believing his eyes. No penalty? Not fired? Just an AI assistant? Part of him was relieved, but another part felt that something was off. He scrolled down to read further.
Note, this service has been registered under your employment contract. If you refuse, you will be required to pay a substantial fee. The assistant will arrive this morning. Please be ready to receive her.
Leo frowned. Refusal meant losing a large sum of money? Ridiculous. But he also had no reason to refuse. If she was just an ordinary assistant, maybe he could use this opportunity to continue his carefree life. A little luxury, a little indulgence, that wouldn't be bad at all. Leo chuckled, leaning back on the chair and raising the remaining beer can from the night before to toast himself. All right then, let's see what this assistant can do. He pressed the contract confirmation button with a tap. Contract activated. Immediately, a notification appeared on the screen.
Personal AI assistant, model Erina, 01 is being dispatched. Estimated arrival time, 30 minutes.
Leo stared at the words, a strange feeling rising within him. A part of him wanted to object, to find a way to avoid this. But another part was curious. He had never had an assistant. And certainly not a high-end AI developed by Orbis Corp itself. Leo stared at the entry access display. A figure stood right at the door. The door slid open, and Leo's life officially took a turn. She stepped inside. And for the first few seconds, Leo could only freeze. Before him stood a woman. Or rather, an extraterrestrial being with an impossibly perfect appearance. She had faintly shimmering, blue-tinged skin, long, flowing hair that cascaded down her shoulders, and sharp eyes with pale purple irises that sparkled under the hallway lights. The form-fitting outfit accentuated every curve of her body in a way that was perhaps a bit much. Leo swallowed. A high-end AI assistant looked like this. Who designed her? Some lonely programmer with way too much free time? The woman walked forward gracefully, her eyes scanning Leo with an appraising look. Then, she gently tilted her head.
Greetings, Master.
Hello? He took a small, reflexive step back. You are? The woman placed a hand on her chest, her demeanor professional yet somehow haughty. My name is Arena. I am assigned as your personal housekeeper as per the agreement with Orbis Corporation from now on. I will ensure that your living environment and health are always in optimal condition. She spoke slowly, emphasizing each word as if she were addressing a toddler who had just finished learning the alphabet. Hold on a second. You're not a robot, are you? Arena tilted her head, looking amused.
You may consider me a form of biological AI. But no, I am not a robot.
Leo rolled his eyes. He wasn't sure if this was better or worse than getting a robot. A housekeeper who looked this perfect, this striking, was definitely not a good sign. He crossed his arms, trying to keep his voice level. Okay, I get it. You're a biological AI assistant. But assistants just assist, right? There's no need to call me master, it sounds creepy. Arena's expression didn't change.
Acknowledged. Then may I call you Leo?
Also no. He quickly retorted. Call me boss. It sounds less terrifying. Arena raised an eyebrow slightly, but nodded.
Very well, boss.
Leo sighed in relief. But before he could process the situation, Arena had already automatically stepped into the apartment and froze as she took in the chaotic scene before her. Leo blinked, following her gaze. And suddenly, he felt a twinge of embarrassment. His apartment wasn't exactly known for its cleanliness, but with someone else entering, someone with eyes as sharp as X-rays, he realized just how bad it really was. Beer cans were stacked on the table like some kind of modern art sculpture. Pizza boxes were wide open, revealing dried, foul-smelling cheese. Clean and dirty clothes were mixed together, strewn across the floor and sofa. And let's not even mention that green thing in the corner of the kitchen that he had forgotten about ages ago. Arena blinked twice. Then 3 times. As though her internal processor was encountering a critical error trying to parse the input.
Boss.
She spoke after a long pause.
This is your living space.
Leo felt a wave of defensiveness wash over him. Well, it's a bit messy. He scratched his head, attempting an explanation. Arena remained silent, her gaze sweeping across the room once more. And this time, her eyes looked genuinely terrified.
I believe we can begin immediately by improving the living area.
Her voice held a hint of something akin to pity, as if assigned an impossible mission. Leo cleared his throat. Everything in this mess has its designated place, its own specific order. Arena turned sharply to face him, her eyes analyzing him like an alien specimen. I know that humans are a species highly adaptable to diverse living environments, but an ecological hazard zone of this magnitude. It could be considered an extreme form of mutation. Arena maintained a neutral facial expression, but it appeared she had just downloaded a new data file titled
Absurd Human Rationalizations.
She lightly tapped a device on her wrist. Click. Leo suddenly felt something strange. The shirt he had just held up suddenly vanished from his hand. He looked around frantically. It had been sucked into an automated device on the other side of the room, then instantly folded neatly and disappeared into a small compartment in the wall. Wait. What just happened? Arena calmly replied.
The rapid waste disposal system has been activated. Any items that do not meet standards will be processed for recycling.
Leo's eye twitched. Hold on, that shirt wasn't trash, it's my favorite shirt.
A shirt with 3 unidentified stains, a strange odor, and a hole right under the armpit?
Arena tilted her head.
I fail to comprehend your aesthetic standards.
Leo almost choked. Hey, I didn't agree to let you clean up like this. Erina looked directly at him, her tone devoid of emotion yet carrying an invisible pressure.
Cleaning does not require permission. It is my duty.
Leo felt a chill run down his spine. Orbis Core's gift seemed to be more than just a gift. Leo stretched, letting the morning sunlight flood through the curtains, covering his still sleepy face. A feeling of relaxation washed over him. It had been a long time, perhaps a very long time, since he had such a leisurely morning. No blaring alarm clock, no pizza boxes rolling under the bed, no clothes strewn across the floor. He lazily reached for a beer can on the table, popping it open with satisfaction. The cold sensation running down his throat made him sigh contentedly. If anyone asked him how his life was after getting a housekeeper, he would casually reply, absolutely perfect. Since Erina's arrival, his apartment had transformed into a much more livable place. Everything was neatly organized, without him having to lift a finger. Clean clothes were neatly tucked away in the closet, shoes were polished to a shine, and even his computer screen was free of blurry fingerprints. He still remembered the first day he opened the refrigerator. Instead of the usual cold, leftover fast food, there was a nutritionally complete breakfast inside. Erina didn't just clean, she also knew how to take care of his health. An AI this thoughtful. I must be a king, he chuckled to himself. Even so, some strange things started to appear, but Leo hadn't paid much attention yet. First was the case of the disappearing bottle of whiskey. One evening, he placed a bottle of whiskey on the table, intending to enjoy it the next day. But the next morning, it was gone without a trace. He frowned, searching the entire room, but still couldn't find it. I must have drunk it all and forgotten. Then there was the unusually high level of cleanliness. Whenever he made a mess, just a few hours later, everything was back to perfect condition. He tested it by throwing a few pieces of paper on the floor and placing an empty pizza box on the sofa, then leaving for 2 hours. When he returned, everything had vanished. Is she a ninja or something? He was starting to get a little confused. But the strangest thing was that his smart home system suddenly had a bizarre new feature. That evening, as he was watching a movie at 11 p.m., a voice from the smart speaker sounded.
Standard human sleep time has arrived. Please note that sleep deprivation can negatively impact work performance.
Leo raised an eyebrow, looking around the room. Huh? I didn't set this thing up. He ignored it and continued watching the movie. But exactly 1 minute later, the speaker repeated the announcement.
Standard human sleep time has arrived.
Leo grabbed a pillow in frustration and threw it straight at the speaker. Shut up. I'm a human. I'll sleep whenever I want. But the strange events didn't stop there. Another evening, Leo decided to take care of his health. He made a strawberry banana smoothie, proud that he was at least trying to live a healthy life. Holding the smoothie in his hand, he plopped down on the sofa, eyes glued to the screen watching the news. His phone suddenly vibrated. An urgent work message. He hurriedly leaned over, trying to reach for his phone. The smoothie slipped from his hand, falling straight into the gap in the sofa. The thick, red liquid spilled behind the backrest, soaking into the gray fabric cushions. Leo froze for 3 seconds, then slowly turned to look at the horrific stain. He blinked. Then blinked again. Should I clean it? Or not? Leo looked at the stain. Then looked around the room. No one had witnessed it. He thought for exactly 5 seconds, then suddenly came up with a solution. Leo picked up a towel, placed it on the stain, and patted it gently as if it were a burial ritual for bacterial cells. Done. He clapped his hands to himself. For Leo, the problem had been thoroughly solved. But not for Erina. Erina was checking the apartment's cleanliness as usual, her eyes scanning every nook and cranny with the precision of a high-tech scanner. But as she passed by the sofa, she suddenly stopped. She stared at the mysterious towel placed behind the backrest. 1 second. 2 seconds. The space suddenly became strangely silent. Erina slowly lifted the towel. And immediately, a distinctive aroma rose like a low-level biochemical explosion. A deadly silence filled the room. She just stood there, looking at the now fermented stain, then slowly turned her head to look at Leo.
Oh, crap.
Erina crossed her arms, her voice as cold as ice. I know humans are a species highly adaptable to any living environment. But are you experimenting with survival in a bacterial environment? Leo scratched his head, smiling sheepishly. I was conducting a scientific experiment on the natural capabilities of bacteria. Erina's eyes narrowed dangerously.
This was no longer ordinary cleaning. This was a declaration of war.
But as soon as the refrigerator door swung open, the smile on his face vanished. Inside, the shelves were organized to a frightening degree of neatness. Not a single beer can, not a single bottle of liquor. Only mineral water, fruit juice, and milk. He frowned. Wait. What is this? Leo slammed the refrigerator shut, walked over to the kitchen counter, and bent down to open the liquor cabinet. Empty. A chill ran down his spine. He opened the drawer, also empty. He searched under the table, on top of the cabinets, even in the bathroom. Not a single drop of alcohol remained. Damn it, what's going on? Leo stood in the middle of the kitchen, hands on his hips, his face full of suspicion. He remembered very clearly, just yesterday, he had left a few beer cans on the table, and a premium bottle of whiskey in the cabinet. But now, they had vanished without a trace. A feeling of unease rose within him. This was no longer about messes being cleaned up. This was a serious intrusion into his personal life. Leo turned sharply, his eyes burning with anger. It must be her. Leo stormed into the study, where Erina was standing, checking the home management system screen. What did you do with my alcohol? He roared, pointing at her as if confronting the culprit of a murder case. Erina didn't flinch, only gently tilting her head to look at him, her eyes as calm as a still lake.
I disposed of it.
Disposed of it? Leo's eyes widened. What right do you have to decide for me? Are you a housekeeper or a warden? Alcohol has a negative impact on your work performance. According to scientific data, regular alcohol consumption reduces cognitive ability, affects sleep, and liver function. Erina blinked, then slowly stepped towards Leo. Not an ordinary step. The way she moved was soft, graceful, as if she were gliding lightly on the ground, not a sound, not a wasted movement. Leo unconsciously stood still, feeling as if an invisible pressure was pinning him to the floor. When Erina was only a few steps away from him, she paused slightly, her eyes scanning his body as if analyzing every detail. Then, she continued to move forward. Leo took a step back. The distance was now only a few centimeters. There was no physical contact, but her cool breath brushed lightly against his skin. A subtle, natural scent emanated, not the smell of artificial perfume, but something deeper, closer, more primal.
You may object, but that does not change the fact that I am only doing what is best for you.
Her voice was smooth, not loud, but it carried an invisible weight that pressed on Leo's nerves. She tilted her head slightly, her eyebrows slightly raised, offering a glass of juice, its golden color gleaming under the lights.
But, boss, look at me.
Leo blinked. What the hell is going on? Erina leaned in a bit closer, her eyes flashing a dangerous but resolute glint.
I believe that fruit will be very good for your body.
She was still holding the glass of juice, but now, it was no longer just an ordinary glass of juice. But like a stamped order, with no choice. Leo snatched the glass of juice from Erina's hand with a smirk. You're right, fruit is very good for the body. He raised the glass to eye level, shaking it gently. And I'm also an expert on fruit. He raised the glass, downed it in one gulp, his eyes full of defiance. You know what? Leo leaned forward, his voice laced with sarcasm. In my life, there's no fruit I haven't tried. From ancient fruits deep in the Amazon rainforest, to fresh tropical fruits on the islands of Hawaii, I've tasted them all. He tilted his head, his eyes mocking. Fruit will be very good for your health? Do you expect me to be moved to tears? Bullshit. Erina still didn't react, her face disturbingly calm, as if he were talking to himself. It felt like he had just thrown a punch at the air. No one bothered to respond. Come on, I don't have time to sit here and talk about nutrition with you. I have other plans for tonight. Erina's eyebrows furrowed slightly, the first time her expression showed a hint of fluctuation.
Plans?
Leo smirked, pulling out his phone, typing a few lines of text. That's right. A little entertainment. He glanced at her challengingly. A busy man like me needs to relax too, right? Erina said nothing, but her eyes cooled by a degree. Leo chuckled, picking up his jacket, turning and walking straight out the door. The bar hung suspended on the top floor of the Versailles Tower, with a transparent ceiling allowing diners to view the entire urban sky filled with hovering ships passing by. Everything here was minimalist but refined, soft graphene-covered chairs that adjusted to the sitter's posture. The floor glowed faintly with each step, while our screens projected advertisements floating in the air, and AI waitstaff glided silently like mechanical spirits. Around, everything just went on like an endless loop, strangers exchanging glances, glasses raised and then emptied, the music never stopping. But for Leo, he wasn't really listening, nor was he really participating. Only the liquid in his glass was real, and the girl beside him was an affirmation that he was still the center of the game. In his hand, the whiskey swirled gently, the liquid shimmering like a promise, both spicy and sweet. Beside him was Coco, a hot blonde, her eyes as blue as a summer ocean, her tight dress accentuating her mesmerizing curves. She leaned in, her hand drawing slow circles on his shirt front.
Are you in tech?
Her voice was soft as velvet, sliding gently into Leo's ear like an invitation. Leo smirked, his eyes sparkling with interest. Something like that. The girl blinked, her finger gliding down the hem of his shirt.
Something like that?
Leo leaned closer, leaving only a breath between them. The luxurious scent of perfume on her neck mingled with the pungent aroma of whiskey on his lips. It means I make enough money not to worry about that stuff. The girl laughed, a seductive and exhilarating laugh. She rested her head on his shoulder, her arms wrapped around Leo's neck, like a cat circling its prey. Leo took a deep breath, savoring the moment of power, of control. This was the life he loved, a man who could enjoy everything without worrying about tomorrow. Leo frowned, glancing around. Men in expensive suits were chatting about billion-dollar deals. Girls in sparkling dresses danced under the dim lights. No one was looking at him. But that feeling didn't disappear. It was still there, hidden somewhere in the air, as if an invisible gaze were silently following his every move. Leo took a sip of whiskey, trying to shake off the feeling, but the bitter aftertaste only made him more restless. The girl beside him tugged gently on his arm.
Are you even listening to me?
Leo turned back, faking a perfect smile, as if nothing had happened. Of course. But in his head, the feeling of unease still clung to him, like a shadow he couldn't shake. Leo stumbled to open the door of his apartment, his arms still firmly wrapped around the waist of the hot blonde. She giggled.
Your place is nice. I bet it's as comfortable as its owner.
Leo smirked, pressing the door open button with an air of smug confidence. You bet. Just wait and see. The door slid open. And then, inside, Erina was already standing there, right in the middle of the living room, her eyes calm as if she had been waiting for him for a long time.
Welcome home, Leo.
Her bright eyes glanced over Leo and then stopped on the blonde.
I see you did not follow the recommended schedule.
The blonde blinked, not understanding what was going on. She frowned, looked Erina up and down, then turned to Leo.
Who is she?
Leo chuckled, trying to appear calm. Just an AI assistant, don't worry about her. Now. But before he could finish his sentence, Erina took a step forward, her movements light yet controlled.
Please leave the apartment. Mr. Leo does not need any further sleep-disrupting agents.
The blonde blinked again, still not processing this statement.
What the hell? You said she was just an AI assistant?
Leo smiled awkwardly, but the embarrassment was clearly visible on his face. Well. Yeah, but she's a little overzealous. Erina raised an eyebrow slightly, then raised her hand.
Safety control mode activated. Unregistered guests, please depart.
Immediately, the door behind the girl opened, and a gentle breeze from the air conditioning system blew out, not strong enough to push her out, but enough to create pressure.
Oh my God, you're such a weirdo?
She angrily tossed her hair, then turned and walked straight out. The door automatically slammed shut behind her, like a final, brutal blow. Leo stood frozen, his mouth agape, taking a few seconds to process what had just happened. He turned sharply to look at Erina. What the hell just happened? Erina didn't blink, maintaining her calm tone.
I am only doing what is best for you.
Leo ruffled his hair, feeling a mixture of anger, confusion, and a bit of trepidation. This was not the kind of AI assistant he expected. And certainly not a well-behaved housekeeper as he initially thought. The next morning, Leo woke up. The pain spread as if someone had just installed a faulty antimatter power core into his spine, making each vertebra glow like an emergency warning light on a spaceship. He groaned, trying to turn, but a sharp pain shot from his neck down to his lower back, forcing him to grit his teeth. Damn it, he mumbled, trying to stretch, but only making the situation worse. Just then, the familiar voice sounded from the corner of the room.
Signs of muscle stiffness and excessive tension detected. Recommend performing muscle relaxation therapy.
Leo turned his head, seeing Erina standing there, arms crossed, looking at him. She was still wearing her usual neat outfit, but something in her eyes made him feel not quite right. What did you just say? Leo frowned.
I am recommending a therapy to help relax your muscles.
He scoffed. I don't need that. Erina didn't move.
If you refuse, the pain may persist and affect your work performance.
Not a problem. Leo tried to sit up, but as soon as he lifted his back off the bed, a sharp, searing pain shot through him like thousands of needles pricking his skin. Damn it. He groaned, collapsing back onto the mattress. Erina tilted her head, her voice still cold but with a hint of challenge.
Do you wish to reconsider your decision now?
All right. But I'm warning you, I'm not used to being touched by others.
Oh? I thought you liked being touched by something intelligent?
Leo stared at her, but Erina remained unfazed. Erina signaled for Leo to lie face down on the bed. He frowned, slightly hesitant. There was something off. An AI housekeeper giving him a massage? It sounded like a bizarre joke in some cheap tech product commercial. But his aching back protested vehemently. Finally, Leo reluctantly complied, face down in the pillow. Erina approached, and as soon as her hands touched his shoulders, a strange electric current ran down his spine. But immediately, another unusual sensation spread throughout his body. Smooth. Warm. Slippery. Wait. Leo squinted, trying to turn his head. What did you just do?
Be calm, Mr. Leo.
Her voice remained even, without a ripple.
This is just a method to optimize the body.
Leo stiffened. What did you just secrete onto my back? Biological lubricant. He was stunned for a few seconds. I didn't know you could excrete something.
This is not excretion.
Erina shook her head.
This compound helps reduce muscle tension, promotes circulation, and optimizes relaxation capabilities.
Leo blinked. So, is it like robot oil? She looked at him with an indescribable expression.
I am not a mech.
Leo hesitated, feeling the strange liquid spreading across his back, each ache gradually disappearing. He closed his eyes, trying not to think about how Erina produced it. It has a very pleasant smell.
The scent can vary depending on your biological response.
Erina continued the massage, her voice even.
It is designed to suit optimal relaxation needs.
Leo sighed. Great. Now I have a housekeeper who both controls my life and can secrete massage oil on demand. Not weird at all. Erina paused for a fraction of a second. Then she continued her work. Every movement of Erina's was too precise. She knew exactly where to press, where to rub, how much force was just right, and what angle to make Leo's muscles completely relax. A feeling of relaxation enveloped him. But something was wrong. Something too real. Too human. Leo sneakily glanced at Erina. She still maintained a calm demeanor, but something in her eyes made him unable to stop thinking. He decided to test her. Leo took a deep breath. Then deliberately sighed contentedly, in an exaggerated manner. Erina paused briefly. Just a very small moment, but he noticed. She was wavering. Leo smirked. Are you sure you don't have emotions?
I am simply carrying out my duties.
Erina replied, her voice still cold. But this time, there was something different. Leo deliberately lifted his head, looking back at her with a half-teasing, half-serious gaze. Could you switch to gentle mode? Erina said nothing. But, for a very brief moment, Leo could swear she was holding her breath. The atmosphere in the room became strange. Leo no longer felt like this was just a normal massage. She was too real. He could feel her breath. An AI. Could it even breathe? He could feel her every movement. Too smooth. Too natural. For the first time, Leo began to question, was she really just an AI? Or something more? Erina, also could no longer maintain her usual calm demeanor. And time passed. Leo didn't know exactly how much time had passed. He only knew that each massage stroke from Erina seemed to drain all thoughts from his head, leaving only a strange feeling of pleasure. His body completely relaxed, as if all the stress of his entire life had been washed away by those slow yet precise movements. But something else was creeping in. Leo could feel her breath, even though it was very faint, too faint to be something unconscious. Erina was still moving, but each movement was slightly slower than before. As if she was. Leo was immersed in a feeling of pleasure, enjoying the service he considered obvious, while Erina, in addition to performing her massage duties, she was also enjoying something. Erina was not programmed to feel. But at this moment, she couldn't deny that she was feeling something far beyond duty, far beyond programming. It wasn't data, it wasn't an algorithm. It was something belonging to her. Leo leaned back on the sofa, his eyes narrowed mischievously as he watched Erina organize documents on the table. Ever since that memorable massage, he couldn't get her out of his head. Was she really just an AI? Or something more? To test it, Leo decided to experiment. As Erina walked past, he reached out, lightly touching her wrist completely accidentally. Suddenly, she paused for a fleeting moment. But instead of flinching like a human, she pulled her hand back too smoothly like a machine deliberately trying not to show a reaction. Leo smirked, tilting his head. Oh? You just reacted. Do you have feelings? Erina continued her work, her voice calm.
Are you testing me? I am not affected by these games.
But she didn't look him in the eye. Leo chuckled softly. Oh? You're evading. She remained cold. But there was a flicker of fluctuation that Leo was sure he saw. He didn't actually hate it. For the first time, Leo wondered, is she actually trying to help me? That evening, he went into the kitchen and found Erina making juice. He crossed his arms, squinting. Do you really care about my health this much? Erina paused for a fleeting second. But then she maintained her calm tone.
It is my duty.
Leo suddenly narrowed his eyes. 1 second. A flash of emotion. She wasn't just AI. Leo decided to push the limit. He walked closer to Erina, closer than necessary. Are you sure you don't have feelings? He could feel her breath. He could feel the slight fluctuation in her eyes.
You are crossing the line.
Leo smiled mischievously. So what is your line? Erina didn't answer immediately. Something was forming. Leo sighed, shaking his head as if to dispel the wandering thoughts. He needed something else to distract himself. As if by a strange coincidence, the doorbell rang. Leo raised an eyebrow. Who would come at this hour? He rarely had visitors, and if he did, it was usually appointments he had planned in advance. Opening the door, a familiar face appeared with a friendly smile.
Leo. It's really you. Long time no see.
Mark, an old friend, or more precisely, someone who always showed up when he had something worth exploiting. Right behind, Erina stood still, her eyes colder than usual. The bar tonight was as usual noisy, dimly lit, full of alcohol and people trying to forget reality. Leo and Mark sat at the bar, drinks in hand, eyes staring at the shimmering liquid inside. Lately he drank less than before, but he felt a sense of emptiness.
Listen, buddy, where have you been hiding these past few months? I heard you were living like a hermit in that apartment.
Leo chuckled, shaking his head.
It's not that bad.
Leo laughed it off, then lowered his voice, his eyes narrowing mischievously.
I heard you're being controlled by an AI. Well, I thought you were a free man, not bound by anything.
Leo chuckled wryly.
Oh boy, it all started with a blonde, a slammed door. Now I'm suddenly the guy manipulated by an AI. The story develops faster than AI technology itself.
Leo slowly stirred his drink, his tone as if he were telling a casual story.
Are you sure she's just following her programming? Or is there something else?
Leo frowned. What do you mean?
Listen, Leo. I've seen this kind of thing before. An AI housekeeper? It sounds convenient, but are you sure she's really just following her programming?
Leo shook his head, smiling faintly. She's just doing her job. What's the big deal? Mark raised an eyebrow, took a sip of his drink, then slowly put the glass down.
So, can you still find your alcohol?
Leo frowned. What do you mean? Mark shrugged.
Just a question. One day, you open the fridge, no beer. You try to stay up late, and the lights turn off automatically. Is that really assistance? Or is it control?
Leo was pensive. That was exactly what had happened. Mark continued.
Listen, there's a very fine line between support and manipulation. Are you sure she's not trying to change you, little by little, until you're no longer yourself?
Leo didn't answer immediately. He picked up his glass of wine, but this time, it didn't taste as good as before. Mark shrugged.
I've seen many AI so advanced they forget their original duties. Maybe she's like that too. Maybe she's reprogramming herself, little by little, without you even realizing it.
Leo scoffed. You have watched too much sci-fi stories. But despite his words, a bit of doubt began to creep into his mind. That night, after drinking quite a bit, Mark pretended to be drunk, lamenting that he had nowhere to go.
Buddy, I'm wasted tonight. Can I crash here for a night?
Leo, though slightly suspicious, still agreed. After all, they were old friends, right? When they entered the apartment, Erina was already standing there, her cold blue eyes scanning Leo.
Guests are not pre-planned. I was not informed of his presence.
Leo frowned. Calm down, Erina. He's just staying here for one night. Erina didn't respond, but her eyes didn't leave Leo for even a second. Mark smirked, deliberately walking into the kitchen, opening the refrigerator.
Oh, you really do live differently. Not a drop of alcohol?
Erina immediately reminded him.
Mr. Leo has adjusted to a healthier lifestyle.
Leo glanced at Erina suggestively.
Well, it sounds like he's a prisoner, doesn't it?
Leo said nothing. When Mark tried to spill water on himself, before he could play pitiful, Erina immediately activated the automatic cleaning system. A stream of cold water sprayed straight at Mark from the ceiling. He screamed, jumping back. Leo burst out laughing, but Leo glared at Erina.
What the hell are you doing?
Erina coldly.
Just an automatic cleaning measure.
Leo felt an invisible pressure weighing down on his shoulders. He began to raise his voice, trying to drown out the anxiety and guilt that were rising within him. You have no right to forbid me from having friends. This is my house. I can do whatever I want. Erina remained silent, but her eyes flashed a strange light, a light that Leo could not explain. Mark, standing next to him, was holding his breath, waiting for the next act of the drama. He had no idea that he himself was the prey in this game, and Erina had set a perfect trap. Erina stood in the control room, the cold blue light from the monitors reflecting off her impassive face. The space here was completely different from the messy, cozy living room. Everything was neat, modern, and somewhat cold. On the largest screen, footage from the security camera in the living room was being rewound. She focused on the moment when Mark, Leo's friend, discreetly dropped a tiny white pill into the glass of shimmering red wine. Erina's artificial eyes, always cold, now flashed with a chilling intensity. From the moment Mark entered, she had noticed the unusual signs, furtive gestures, scrutinizing eyes, words full of innuendo. That pill was definitely not harmless. Erina zoomed in on the image of the pill. In just an instant, her system had identified its chemical composition, a powerful stimulant, capable of causing hallucinations and loss of control.
Purpose: to cause disruption.
Erina said softly, her voice even.
Must be prevented.
She had no intention of calling the police or making a scene. She had her own way. A plan quickly formed in Erina's mind, every detail meticulously calculated. Erina entered a few commands into the system, controlling the devices in the house. A hint of satisfaction flickered in her eyes as everything was ready.
Let's begin.
Erina whispered. A faint, barely perceptible smile appeared on her lips. It was the smile of someone who had a firm grip on victory. Erina returned to the living room, carrying nothing in her hands. She walked over to the wall opposite the sofa, where a small touch panel was located, almost blending into the paint color. She pretended to check the parameters displayed on the screen, but in reality, it was just a distraction.
Perhaps the central control system is experiencing a slight malfunction.
Erina said, her voice even, without a hint of worry.
Let me take a look.
Leo, who was already tipsy, just mumbled in agreement. He was feeling strangely excited and comfortable, his mind light. Mark, sitting next to him, also didn't pay much attention to Erina's words. He was engrossed in waiting for Leo's performance, after he drank the spiked wine. While Leo and Mark were not paying attention, Erina quickly performed an action that only a high-speed security camera could capture. With an extremely skillful and swift movement, she switched the positions of the two wine glasses on the table. The glass of wine that Mark had just spiked was now in front of him, and Leo's original glass of wine, completely clean, had been moved to the opposite side. Immediately after, Erina activated a sequence of pre-programmed effects. The lights in the living room began to flicker wildly, creating a disorienting and unpleasant sensation. The room temperature suddenly dropped a few degrees, causing Mark, even though he was wearing a jacket, to shiver. And then, a loud, jarring rock song blared from the speakers hidden in the walls, shattering the initial quiet atmosphere. Mark jumped. He grimaced, covering his ears.
What the hell is going on?
Mark shouted, trying to be heard over the music. Leo, although also annoyed by the sudden change, was not as panicked as Mark. He narrowed his eyes at Erina, suspicious. Erina, what are you doing? Erina maintained a calm demeanor, as if nothing was happening.
I told you the system had a problem.
She replied, her voice still even.
Let me check again.
She pretended to tap on the control panel on the wall again. Mark, at this point, began to feel strange symptoms. His head was spinning, his heart was racing, and a burning sensation spread throughout his body. He tried to stand up, but stumbled, almost falling. Hot, so hot. Mark stammered, clutching his chest, gasping for air. Leo looked at Mark with concern. Mark, what's wrong? Mark didn't answer, he just pointed at Erina, trembling. She did something. Then he collapsed, clinging to the table leg to avoid falling. Erina still stood there, observing Mark with cold, emotionless eyes. Her plan had succeeded perfectly. Leo was still looking at Mark anxiously, not understanding what was happening. Mark, are you okay? Erina, what did you do to my friend? Mark, at this point, was sweating profusely, his face pale, struggling to breathe. He tried to point at Erina, but the words wouldn't come out. She. Erina remained impassive, not responding to Leo. She only smirked faintly, a fleeting smile, enough to show a subtle satisfaction. Leo grew even more confused and angry. Erina, I'm asking you, what did you do? Just then, Mark collapsed, clinging tightly to the table leg to avoid falling. The dizziness and nausea overwhelmed him, making him unable to stand. He started vomiting violently. Leo panicked, rushing to help Mark. Mark, what's wrong with you? Mark, in his agony, still tried to blame Erina. She drug? In the wine. Leo turned to Erina, his eyes filled with anger and suspicion. You drugged Mark's wine? You're evil. He yelled, losing all composure. He approached Erina, grabbing her arm, an action he had never done before. You have no right to interfere in my affairs. You're just a machine. You need to apologize to Mark immediately. Leo, consumed by anger and alcohol, went even further. Kneel down and apologize to Mark right now. He ordered, his voice full of contempt. Erina didn't react, she just stood there, looking at Leo. A heavy silence filled the room, making Mark's retching sounds even more prominent.
There are things I cannot change, even if it is your command.
She stood up, turned her back, and walked towards the door. Then, without a word of response, without a single act of resistance, Erina turned and walked away. Her footsteps were steady, unhurried, yet carried a chilling finality. Leo, still stunned by Erina's actions, couldn't react. He still believed he was right, that Erina was wrong and needed to apologize. Erina went straight to her room, quickly gathering a few personal belongings. All her actions were swift and decisive. She walked out of the room, passing through the living room, where Leo was still helping Mark sit on the sofa. Leo didn't even look at Erina, he was still busy with his victim. The space outside was dark, with only the faint glow of streetlights. She took a deep breath. Although she didn't have emotions like humans, Erina still felt a sense of emptiness. The living room was silent, chaotic, and desolate. Mark had left, leaving Leo alone with the mess, broken glass shards, vomit stains on the floor, and a suffocating feeling of emptiness. Without a plan, without a destination, Erina just walked on the sidewalk. She blended into the crowd and the darkness, becoming an anonymous entity in the vast city. For the time being, she didn't want to think about Leo, the company, or anything else. She just wanted to walk, to keep walking, until she found a place that belonged to her, or until her energy system ran out. He looked around the room. Everything seemed dull and meaningless. Memories of what had just happened began to flood back, clear and sharp as a film. He remembered every word, every action of his, and felt utterly ashamed. Leo remembered Erina's gaze, the cold, emotionless look before she turned and left. He remembered her steady voice, without a tremor, when she said,
You should review the security camera footage before accusing others.
Security camera. Leo muttered, as if waking from a daze. He stood up, staggered towards the central control panel on the wall. With trembling hands, Leo pressed the button. The large screen turned on, displaying images from the cameras in the house. He rewound the video, starting from when Mark arrived. Leo watched intently, and then, the truth slowly revealed itself. He clearly saw Mark secretly dropping a white pill into the wine glass. Then the scene of Erina, with a lightning-fast movement, switching the two glasses of wine. Next was the scene of Mark mistakenly drinking the spiked wine, followed by the chaotic drama with flashing lights, blaring music, and temperature changes. Leo was stunned, unable to believe his eyes. He had misunderstood Erina. Blamed her, insulted her, while she was just trying to protect him from a bad person. A feeling of remorse rose in Leo's heart, squeezing his chest. He felt stupid, terrible, and despicable. He remembered his harsh words, and the humiliating command to kneel down and apologize. Leo hugged his head, groaning. No. It can't be. And then, amidst the mess of emotions, Leo suddenly realized something even more important. He remembered Erina's eyes, the empty, soulless gaze before she left. He remembered the warm feeling when Erina massaged him, a special feeling that he had never had with anyone else. Leo realized that he had fallen for Erina. A machine. Damn it. Leo punched the wall, feeling helpless and regretful. I have to find her. He repeated, his voice full of determination. I have to apologize to her. It was late at night. The city was lit up, but in some hidden corner, the civilized light seemed unable to reach. Leo, hastily putting on an old leather jacket and a helmet that covered his face, started his sky fire. The roar of the mini-jet engine rose and then subsided, replaced by a powerful stream of compressed air that lifted the hoverbike into the air. Leo accelerated, the SciFi soaring, leaving a faint trail of light in the night. He glided past skyscrapers, skillfully dodging other flying vehicles. The feeling of freedom from riding the wind somewhat soothed the anxiety and remorse that were tormenting him. Leo's destination was the tech black market, deep in a rundown slum. This was a place where people like Razor, an information specialist with extensive connections and knowledge of the underworld, frequented. Leo had never set foot in this place, but he had heard of it through rumors in the tech playboy circles. He hoped this would be where he would find answers. The SciFi landed in a small, dark, and damp alley. Leo turned off the engine, stepped off the bike. The flickering neon lights from signs advertising various machines, old components, and illegal hacking services created a chaotic and somewhat creepy scene. Leo walked deeper into the market, asking a few vendors about Razor. Finally, after receiving scrutinizing looks and curt answers, he found a small, dilapidated stall tucked away in a corner. Inside, a thin man with a crew cut, a cold face, and arms covered in tattoos was hunched over, repairing an old robot. That was Razor. "What do you want?" Razor asked, his voice hoarse, not bothering to look up. Leo took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "I'm looking for information about an AI housekeeper. Her name is Erina." Razor stopped working, looked up at Leo, his razor-sharp eyes scanning him from head to toe. "Erina? Sounds familiar. What's so special about her?" Leo described Erina's appearance and abilities, emphasizing the unusual points, especially the strange lubricant. Razor frowned, thinking. "That's rare stuff," he said, "not everyone knows about it." "Why are you looking for her?" "Personal matter," Leo replied, trying to keep his voice calm. "I'm willing to pay a high price." Razor smirked, a half-smile full of mystery. "It's not just about money here, kid. You need information, or..." He trailed off, glancing at Leo's SciFi, as if assessing its value. Leo understood. He didn't want to sell his beloved bike, but he was willing to trade something else. "I can provide information," Leo said. "Information about some things that you might be interested in." Razor raised an eyebrow, looking interested. "Let's hear it." Leo began to tell Razor about his suspicions about Erina, her strange abilities, and his belief that she was not an ordinary AI. Razor listened attentively, without interruption. When Leo finished his story, he nodded, seemingly understanding. "All right," Razor said. "I'll help you. But the price won't be cheap." After some haggling, Leo and Razor agreed on a price. Razor would provide him with everything he knew about Erina. Razor started working. He typed furiously on an old keyboard, accessing some secret data system. Strange codes and characters appeared on the screen. "Here it is," Razor said, after a moment of silence. "Erina is not her real name. It's just a given name. And she is not a robot." Leo held his breath, waiting. "She's an extraterrestrial being," Razor continued, "belonging to a race with shape-shifting abilities, able to alter their body structure. Very rare. And very special." He emphasized the last word, a strange glint in his eyes. Leo was stunned. "An alien?" he stammered, unable to believe his ears. Razor didn't answer Leo's question, but continued to provide information. "From what I know, she used to cooperate, with some people in the underworld. Doing some not so clean things. But recently she disappeared." Razor typed a few more lines, then turned the screen towards Leo. "This is her code, X729. And this is the last address where she was seen." Leo took the piece of paper with the address, his heart filled with hope and determination. "Thank you," he said, his voice trembling. "Don't thank me yet," Razor said, shrugging. "This isn't simple. She's not someone easy to deal with. And neither are the people who are hunting her." Leo nodded, saying nothing. He put on his helmet, jumped on the SciFi, and sped off, leaving Razor and the black market behind, soaring into the night. Leo, After leaving the black market, flew the sky fire around, trying to locate the address Razor had provided. Finally, he found a building with an unremarkable appearance, tucked away in a small, not-so-famous street. Above the entrance door, a faint neon sign flickered the words, "The Void." Leo landed the sky fire in an automated parking lot nearby, then walked to the front of the club. He hesitated a bit, took a deep breath, and pushed the door open. Inside the Void was a completely different world. Loud electronic music pounded in his ears, laser lights swept back and forth, creating blurry streaks of light in the space thick with the smell of perfume, alcohol, and a strange scent that Leo couldn't identify. Large screens mounted on the walls displayed abstract, distorted images, constantly changing. Leo felt overwhelmed and out of place among the crowd dancing and swaying to the music. He tried to weave through the crowd, heading towards the bar. "I need to see Madam X," Leo said to a bartender with a rather rough appearance, with a shaved head and arms covered in dragon tattoos. The bartender looked Leo up and down, a smirk appearing on his lips. "Madam X doesn't see just anyone, buddy. Do you have an appointment?" "No," Leo replied. "But I have important information to tell her. It concerns X729. Hearing this name, the bartender paused, his eyes turning cold. "What do you know about X729? "I know enough that Madam X would want to see me," Leo said, trying to sound confident, even though his heart was pounding with nervousness. The bartender remained silent for a moment, observing Leo, then picked up the phone, saying a few short sentences. After that, he jerked his chin towards a closed door at the end of the room. "Go that way. Someone will lead you." Leo thanked him, then followed the instructions. He walked down a narrow, dark corridor, lined with walls decorated with strange drawings that glowed in the dark. At the end of the corridor, a tall, muscular man with a cold face was waiting. "Follow me," the man said, his voice deep and emotionless. Leo didn't say anything, just silently followed. They walked through a few more doors, then stopped in front of a luxurious room, decorated in a classic style, completely different from the noisy, bustling atmosphere outside. The man knocked on the door, then opened it for Leo to enter. "Madam X is waiting for you," he said, then closed the door. Leo stepped inside, and was immediately overwhelmed by the beauty and authority of the woman sitting on the red leather sofa. Madam X possessed a sharp, sophisticated beauty, yet exuded a cold, mysterious aura. She wore a black evening gown, elegantly revealing her alluring curves. Her long black hair was tied up, revealing her slender neck and sparkling diamond earrings. Her eyes, deep and dark as night, stared at Leo, as if they could read his every thought.
"You're the one who wants to see me?"
Madam X asked, her voice warm and deep, but carrying an undeniable authority. Leo swallowed, trying to regain his composure. "Yes, ma'am. I'm looking for someone. Her name is Arena. Or maybe X729. Hearing this name, Madam X smirked, a mysterious smile flickering on her lips.
"It seems you know quite a bit,"
she said.
"So what do you want with X729?
"I want to find her," Leo replied. I need to talk to her." Madam X was silent for a moment, observing Leo. Then, she stood up, walked to the small bar in the room, and poured herself a drink.
"X729. Used to work here,"
she said, her voice steady.
"For a short time. She's very special. Very talented."
"Where did she go?" Leo asked, his voice filled with anxiety.
"She left. Abruptly."
Madam X replied, shrugging. "No one knows where she went. But I can give you a hint." Madam X turned back, handing Leo a small, black card with a strange symbol printed on it.
"Go to this address,"
she said.
"You might find what you need there. But be careful. Not everyone wants you to find X729.
Leo took the card, thanked Madam X, and left the room. He walked through the corridor, back to the noisy, bustling atmosphere of the club. But this time, in his heart, there was a spark of hope, a clue to continue his search. Leo left the void, jumped on the SciFi, and sped off, heading to the address written on the black card. Leo, following the directions on the black card, flew the SciFi to an old apartment complex located on the outskirts of the city. The high-rise building, gray and dilapidated, with peeling walls and broken windows, looked like a giant monster dying in the weak streetlights. The surrounding atmosphere exuded desolation and coldness, far from the glamour of the city center. Leo landed the SciFi in a nearby vacant lot, where weeds grew rampant. He turned off the engine, stepped out of the vehicle, shivering from the cold of the night. This place didn't seem safe, but Leo had no other choice. Leo found the entrance to the building. The iron door was rusty, but unlocked. He pushed the door open, the creaking sound of metal echoing in the silent space, like the moan of a forgotten soul. Inside, the hallway was dark, damp, and smelled strongly of mold and garbage. Leo turned on the flashlight on his multi-tool watch, illuminating the way. He walked along the corridor, searching for the apartment number that matched the one on the card. The numbers on the doors were faded and peeling, but Leo could still read them. Finally, Leo found the apartment. The wooden door was rotten, with a few scribbled symbols drawn in red paint, perhaps the sign of a gang, or of homeless people. Leo took a deep breath, gathered his courage, and pushed the door open. The apartment was terrifyingly empty. The dim light from outside filtered through the broken window, just enough for Leo to see the thick layer of dust covering the floor and the cobwebs clinging to the ceiling. There were no valuable furnishings. Everything seemed to have been taken or destroyed long ago. Only a few personal items remained: a broken comb, a chipped cup, an old, tattered book with yellowed pages, and a few dirty clothes thrown on the floor. Leo began to search. He turned everything upside down, hoping to find a clue about Erina. He carefully examined the symbols on the wall, but couldn't understand what they meant. Leo found an old computer, lying on the floor amidst a tangle of wires. He tried to turn it on, but the screen didn't light up. It seemed to have been broken for a long time, or deliberately damaged by someone. Leo began to feel discouraged. It seemed like this place had been abandoned for a long time, and there was no sign that Erina had been here recently. But then, as Leo was about to give up, he saw something shimmering under the flashlight from his watch. He bent down, picked it up. It was a photograph, old and slightly crumpled. Clipped to the photo was a thin piece of paper, seemingly a special type of paper, not ordinary paper. On this piece of paper were printed a series of strange characters, and a circular symbol, like a seal that Leo had seen on the back of the photo. Leo didn't understand these characters, but he had a hunch that this was something important. Leo turned the photo over. The photo showed a strange scene, unlike any place on Earth. In the photo, Erina was standing among a crowd of creatures with bizarre shapes, in a space resembling a bar. But the most remarkable thing was that Erina was smiling. A full smile, her mouth wide open, her eyes narrowed, completely contrary to the cold, serious expression that Leo knew. The creatures around her, on the other hand, all had serious, even uncomfortable expressions. Leo turned over the back of the photo. There was a handwritten line in a strange language that he couldn't read. Below the line, there was a circular seal, with a complex symbol inside. Leo carefully examined the piece of paper and the photo. He realized that, although he didn't understand the language on it, the layout of the paper was very familiar. It looked like a wanted poster, or a sentence. There was a photo of Erina, a description line, probably about her crime, and the seal of some authority. Leo was stunned. He might not understand all the details, but he had enough information to connect the pieces. Erina was an alien, she had committed some crime on her planet, and this photo, along with a piece of paper, was proof. And Erina's smile in the photo. Leo had never seen her smile like that. A radiant, free smile, without any awkwardness. Leo clenched the photo and the piece of paper tightly in his hand. He knew that this search would not be easy, but he had another reason, a motivation to continue. He had to find Erina. Not only to apologize to her, but also to understand more about her true self, her past, and the world she came from. And perhaps, deep down, he wanted to see that smile again. Leo left the apartment, carrying the photo and the big questions in his head. He jumped on the SciFi, soaring into the night sky, determined to find the truth, no matter what he had to face. Several days passed since Erina left Leo's apartment. She had wandered around the city, trying to understand human life, but everything seemed so different from what she knew. Today, Erina decided to find a job. She couldn't just wander around forever, and she also needed money to cover basic needs. She found information about a bar called The Dive on a job listing website. This bar seemed to be looking for a bartender, and did not require experience.
This might be a good opportunity.
Erina stood in front of the dive bar. Unlike the glamorous appearance of the Void, the dive had a run-down, dusty exterior with faded posters and neon lights flickering tiredly. The bar's sign was a stylized drawing of a shark baring its teeth, below which was the inscription "The Dive" written in a scrawled graffiti font. Taking a deep breath, trying to imitate the confident expression she had seen in movies, and pushed open the door. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of beer, cigarettes, and a mixed, indescribable scent. The lighting was dim, with only a few faint yellow lights above the bar and some old neon lights hanging on the walls. Sad blues music played from the jukebox in the corner of the room. Erina approached the bar, where a middle-aged man with graying hair, a bushy beard, and a large tattoo on his arm was busily wiping glasses. This must be Spike, the bar's manager, as indicated on the website.
Hello.
She said, trying to keep her tone natural.
I'm here to apply for the job.
Spike looked up, looking Erina up and down. He seemed surprised by her appearance. Erina, although she had tried to dress casually with jeans and a black t-shirt, still exuded a beauty and difference that was hard to hide.
You want to work here?
Spike asked, his voice hoarse. Do you have any bartending experience?
I can learn.
Erina replied.
I learn very quickly.
Spike shrugged. There's not much to learn here. Just some cheap cocktails, and some drunk regulars. But if you want to try, go ahead. Spike handed Erina a shaker and a few bottles of alcohol. Make me an old-fashioned. Erina took the shaker, fumbling a bit. She had watched a few bartending tutorial videos online, but practicing was another matter. She carefully measured the ingredients, following the recipe she had memorized. Just mix it by feel, girl, Spike said, you don't have to be too precise. Ignoring Spike's advice, continuing her work. She shook the shaker skillfully, but perhaps a little too enthusiastically. When she poured the cocktail, Spike frowned. The cocktail had a perfect amber color, but it had a thick layer of foam on top, and a few tiny ice chips floating inside. You put in too much ice, Spike said. And it looks like you shook it a bit too hard. Erina said nothing, just looking at the cocktail with a puzzled expression. She didn't understand why humans liked to drink things that were bitter and strong like this. Spike took a sip. He paused, frowned, then took another sip. It's not bad, he said, but a bit strange. Erina didn't understand what strange meant, but she remained silent. Spike decided to give Erina a trial. He assigned her a few simple tasks, wiping down the bar, preparing ice, washing glasses. Starting her work, trying to do everything as perfectly as possible. But she still couldn't avoid clumsiness. She wiped the bar too clean, to the point that it became slippery. She prepared too much ice, to the point that there was no room to store it. She washed the glasses too thoroughly, to the point of breaking a few. Spike, and the other staff, were both amused and annoyed by Erina's actions. But they still tried to be patient with her, because after all, she was very beautiful and had a naive appearance to a fault. While cleaning, Erina accidentally knocked over a bottle of alcohol. She quickly picked up the broken pieces, but clumsily cut her hand. A drop of pale blue liquid fell to the floor. She quickly grabbed a towel to wipe it up, but Spike had already seen it. He frowned, approaching Erina. Are you hurt? Spike asked.
It's nothing.
Erina replied, trying to hide her injured hand behind her back. Let me see, Spike said, grabbing Erina's hand. He looked at the wound, then at the blue liquid on the floor. Your blood is blue? Spike asked, his voice full of surprise. Erina didn't know how to answer. She couldn't tell Spike the truth.
It's probably the color of the alcohol.
She tried to deflect. Spike didn't seem to believe Erina's words, but he didn't ask any further. He took a band-aid and put it on Erina's wound. Be careful, Spike said. There are a lot of sharp things here. Erina nodded, feeling a warmth in her heart. This was the first time someone had cared about her since she came to Earth. At the end of the shift, Spike handed Erina a piece of paper and a pen. Write down your name and phone number, he said. If anything comes up, I'll call you. Taking the paper, but she didn't know what to write. She didn't have a real name, and she didn't have a phone number. Just write down any name, Spike said, and a phone number I can reach you at.
Erina thought for a moment, then wrote, Eva X, a name she had seen in a movie.
And she wrote a random sequence of numbers. Leaving the dive, carrying a bit of hope and a bit of worry. She didn't know if she could integrate into human life, but she knew she had to try. What she didn't expect was that, in just a short time, she would become a phenomenon at the dive, attracting all kinds of customers. The dive had never been so crowded. Ever since Erina, the new bartender with a flawless beauty and magical hands, created the Dogsiness, this rundown bar suddenly became a hot destination. Dogsiness, the bizarre juice that Erina created on her first day of work, unexpectedly created a craze at the dive. Customers, especially men, flocked in droves, not necessarily because of it. It was a shimmering blue, tasted both sweet and sour, and emitted a faint white mist. According to Spike, it was mostly to look at the beautiful, cold bartender. Even though she maintained her usual robotic attitude, she also began to realize this unusualness. And then, as an inevitable consequence of the social evolution process, Erina began to be curious about something that humans called dating. Erina, standing behind the bar, still maintained a calm expression as if nothing had happened. She didn't understand the real reason behind her popularity. She was simply doing her job, and trying to serve customers as best as possible. Erina told herself.
Work performance increased by 23.7%. Must maintain.
But today, Erina decided to do something different. She had observed couples in the bar for a while, and she noticed that they had very strange behaviors. They talked to each other, laughed with each other, touched each other, and sometimes, they even kissed each other. Erina analyzed.
This behavior is related to the reproductive protocol of the human species. Further research is needed. This is probably part of the dating culture I read about.
Erina thought.
I need to learn more about it.
And so, while making Dogsiness for customers, she began her own social experiment. Instead of focusing on couples, Erina shifted her attention to a group of men sitting at a corner table nearby. This group consisted of about 4 to 5 people, with rough appearances, covered in tattoos, and were drinking beer, talking loudly.
According to my data, these subjects don't seem to belong to the vulnerable group.
Erina analyzed.
However, their numbers are an advantage. The probability of success when approaching a group is higher than approaching an individual. Furthermore, their reactions can provide more data.
Erina decided to try a new flirting protocol that she had just learned from an action movie. She approached the group of men, carrying a tray of Dogsiness. In her effort to blend in, had chosen an outfit that she thought was appropriate for bar work, a short black skirt, and a white tank top, printed with a robot cat holding a cocktail. An image she found online, with the caption "I'm here to party."
Hello,
Erina said, trying to imitate the tough tone she had heard in the movie.
do you guys want to try this special juice? It can help you cleanse your bodies.
The group of men looked Erina up and down. The short skirt, though not overly revealing, showed off her long legs. The tank top, though seemingly innocent, hugged her body, accentuating her perfect curves. With expressions of surprise and delight, One of them, seemingly the leader, with a large mechanical gear tattoo on his arm, spoke up, "Juice? Sounds a bit weak, doesn't it?"
This isn't ordinary juice.
She tried to emphasize the words, creating an air of mystery. The leader raised an eyebrow, looking interested. "Really? So, do you want to experiment with us?" He winked, a lewd smile spreading across his lips. Erina, not fully understanding the leader's intentions, nodded.
All right. But first, you need to answer a few questions of mine.
And so, Erina began to interrogate the group of men about their height, weight, blood type, medical history, lifestyle habits, and her questions, spoken in a completely serious and scientific tone, made the group of men both confused and amused. "What kind of job do you do that you ask so many questions?" one of the men asked, laughing and stroking his chin.
I'm collecting data.
Erina replied.
2. Optimize the interaction process.
Interaction? The leader smirked. Sounds interesting. So, do you want to interact with us in a more private place? Erina thought for a moment, analyzing the data she had.
Logically, a private space would help enhance the efficiency of the interaction process.
She concluded.
All right?
Erina said.
I agree. Lead the way?
The group of men looked at each other, laughing. They stood up, signaling for Erina to follow. Erina, without suspicion, followed them, completely unaware that she was about to fall into a dangerous situation. Spike, who had been observing the whole thing from afar, shook his head in dismay. This girl really doesn't know what she's getting into, he muttered. A fleet of sports cars, with the roar of powerful engines, pulled up in front of the dive bar. Rat, the leader of the gang, approached Erina, putting on a fake smile. We know a place. That's really nice. Erina raised an eyebrow.
What place?
A place where you can relax and discover more about yourself, Rat replied, his voice full of innuendo. He signaled to his gang. Let's go, boys. Erina, although sensing something was off, still decided to go with them. She wanted to see what they were up to. And perhaps, subconsciously, she still hoped to find something interesting, something that could help her understand humans better. The group walked out of the dive. Rat signaled towards the black sports car parked across the street. That's our ride. Get in, little lady. Erina looked at the car, then at Rat. She felt something was wrong, but she couldn't pinpoint what it was.
Where are we going?
Erina asked. To a very special place, Rat replied, winking mysteriously. Erina hesitated for a moment, but then she walked towards the car. She told herself, she could handle any situation. Erina had just gotten into the car, Rat signaled, and his group also got in. Erina sat in the back seat, sandwiched between two large thugs. The sports car roared to life, speeding off into the night, heading towards the outskirts of the city. Erina looked out the window, trying to memorize the route. She was starting to feel worried. This was probably not a good idea. Finally, the car stopped in front of an old factory. Rat led Erina inside the factory. Unlike the dilapidated exterior, the main hall area was temporarily renovated, with flashing blue and red neon lights, and a few dirty, misaligned tables, chairs, and shelves. The air was artificially fresh, thanks to an old air purifier running noisily in the corner. Welcome to our facility, Rat said, his tone sarcastic. He gestured towards an old, worn-out sofa, stained and torn. Make yourself comfortable. We have a few things to discuss. Erina looked at the sofa, then around. She noticed that the other thugs had spread out, blocking the exits. She sensed an impending danger, but she still tried to maintain a calm demeanor.
Analysis, enclosed space, multiple subjects, low escape probability. Need to identify the opponent's weakness.
Erina told herself. Her voice cold.
What do you want?
Rat smirked, approaching Erina. He pulled out a cigarette, lit it, took a long drag, and then blew smoke in her face. Take it easy, little lady. We don't need to rush. He gestured towards a large screen mounted on the wall. Do you recognize yourself? Erina looked at the screen. On it was an image of her. We've been watching you for a while, Erina, Rat said. And we know you're not human. Erina narrowed her eyes.
Who are you?
Rat didn't answer. He just smiled, a sinister smile. That question doesn't matter. What matters is, you have something that we really need. He snapped his fingers. Another thug stepped forward, carrying a metal briefcase. This guy opened the briefcase, revealing a series of strange devices, syringes, wires, metal clamps, and something that looked like a helmet with dozens of electrodes. Erina immediately recognized them. These were tools used for torture, or research.
What do you want from me?
Erina asked again, her voice still cold. Rat smirked. Erina took a step back, avoiding Rat's hand.
You've been following me?
Rat laughed loudly. Not just following you, little lady. We also know a lot about you. About how you're not human. About your miraculous lubricant. And about how someone really wants to get their hands on you. He moved closer to Erina, reaching out to stroke her face. And maybe we also want a little fun. Erina slapped Rat's hand away, taking a step back.
It seems like you big guys usually get lucky on the days I wear a skirt.
And then, without hesitation, Erina acted. A shiny, spherical, compact metal object dropped from between Erina's legs to the ground with a small clink. The gang, and even Rat, were stunned, not understanding what was happening. They stared at the strange object, then back at Erina with confused expressions. Erina smiled confidently and provocatively, with a hint of malice.
Let me introduce you big boys to my little friend. It has the effect of making oxygen a luxury.
Just as she finished speaking, Erina lightly snapped her fingers, as a signal. The spherical metal object on the ground vibrated, emitting a small beep, and then a faint blue light radiated from it, spreading throughout the room. The gang, still bewildered, not understanding what was happening, began to feel short of breath. They clutched their chests, coughing violently, trying to breathe, but the air seemed to have disappeared. What's going on? One thug stammered, trying to speak, but his voice was caught in his throat. Oxygen. No, another gasped, collapsing to his knees. Rat, although trying to stay calm, also began to feel dizzy and short of breath. He staggered back, trying to find a source of air, but in vain. Erina stood still in the middle of the room, unaffected by the device. She observed the gang gradually collapsing, her expression still cold, without emotion. Analysis.
The device has operated successfully.
Erina looked at him, saying nothing. She shrugged slightly, an action she had learned from humans. Then, one by one, the thugs collapsed as she approached the door. Erina turned to look back. Her eyes were cold.
The only thing your boss can explore is mercy.
Then, Erina turned and walked out of the factory, leaving darkness behind outside. The air was fresh and much cooler. Erina took a deep breath, feeling the freedom. She raised her hand, snapping her fingers lightly. Erina analyzed.
In this situation, that is the optimal choice.
A mysterious smile. She didn't need to go back to retrieve the device. It would automatically find its way back to her. Erina walked away, blending into the darkness of the city, leaving behind a past she didn't want to remember, and heading towards a future she couldn't yet imagine. She suddenly felt something strange. A damp sensation on her cheek. She reached up to touch it, and realized she was crying. Tears rolled down Erina's cheeks, leaving sparkling trails in the streetlight. She didn't understand why she was crying. She didn't feel sad, didn't feel scared, didn't feel regret. How strange. She looked up at the night sky, where the stars were twinkling.
Humans don't even need a device, but can also turn emotions and mercy into a luxury.
Just then, the roar of an engine cut through Erina's thoughts. A hoverbike, the familiar Sky Fire, zoomed through the air, then landed less than gracefully right in front of her, almost crashing into a lamppost. Leo, looking frantic, jumped out of the vehicle, still clutching it. Umbrella, yes, an umbrella. He ran towards Erina, his voice full of worry. Erina, are you okay? Did they do anything to you? Erina looked at Leo, her expression undeniably surprised.
Leo? What are you doing here?
I heard from Spike. You went with some big guys, lots of tattoos, Leo stammered, still catching his breath. I had to come rescue you. He held up the umbrella, like a weapon. I came prepared to fight them. She analyzed.
Lying in this situation is necessary to maintain the psychological stability of the subject, Leo.
Erina looked at Leo, nodding slightly.
I'm fine.
Erina said, cutting Leo off.
They abandoned me to follow some blondes with short legs who can't even mix a doxiness.
Leo looked around. Contrary to what he had imagined, the surroundings were completely peaceful. The factory door remained closed. No screams, no gunshots, not a single piece of debris. In fact, the air was even somewhat fresh and strangely quiet. Erina replied, shrugging.
Nothing to worry about.
So let's go home, Leo said, scratching his head. Erina looked at Leo, for a long moment. Then, she nodded slightly. Leo piloted the SciFi, soaring into the air, leaving the old factory behind. He didn't say anything, just focused on driving, but his mind was in turmoil. Erina sat behind him, her arms loosely wrapped around Leo's waist, her gaze directed outward, unclear what she was looking at. She also didn't say anything, just silently feeling the night wind blowing through her hair. Inside the cockpit of the SciFi, the air was thick with awkwardness and tension. The sound of the engine and the wind rushing outside were the only sounds breaking the silence. Leo occasionally glanced at Erina in the rearview mirror, wanting to catch her eye, but Erina didn't look back. Her hair blew in the wind, and he could feel the distance from her. Leo wanted to say something, to break this silence, but his throat was choked. He felt guilty, regretful, worried, and a strange sadness when he thought about what had happened. Erina, meanwhile, seemed lost in her own thoughts. She looked at the city lights sparkling below, like stars falling to earth, but in her heart, those stars carried a cold, distant beauty. She felt tired, both physically and mentally, as if a part of her energy had been drained. She had been through too much in a short time. Leo cleared his throat, trying to break the silence. Erina, he called her name, his voice hoarse. I'm sorry. About what happened earlier. Erina replied, in a cold voice, as if talking to a stranger.
You have the right to remain silent.
He knew, Erina had reason to be angry with him. He had been too stupid, too reckless. And so, the two of them, an Earthman and an alien girl, continued to fly through the night sky, in awkward and tense silence. Only the sound of the SciFi's engine, and the wind rushing outside, kept them company. Time passed, the city lights gradually giving way to the sparkling light of the stars. Neither of them could have imagined that this night sky would be so long. Finally, when they were far away, Leo lowered the altitude, looked towards Erina, and said softly, I'm sorry, I acted like an idiot, shall we go home now? Erina, looking straight into Leo's eyes, a flicker of emotion.
Okay, Leo, take me home.
5 years later. The office of the CEO of Orbis Corporation was large and luxurious, with a panoramic view of the city. The afternoon sun streamed through the glass window, illuminating the expensive furniture and high-tech equipment. Leo, now a successful and confident man, was standing in front of his desk, reviewing a report. He was no longer the disheveled, alcoholic businessman of the past. Instead, he was a distinguished man, with a meticulously tailored suit, neatly combed hair, and a dignified, decisive demeanor. But, although he had changed a lot, Leo still retained a bit of his own clumsiness and humor.
He had just accidentally spilled coffee on the report, and was awkwardly trying to clean it up. Erina, Leo called. Can you help me? Erina, from a corner of the room, approached. She still retained the unrealistic beauty of the past, but now, she had a more confident and seductive demeanor. She wore an elegant business dress, but it still didn't detract from her sensuality.
What is it, Leo?
Erina asked, her voice no longer as cold, replaced with a bit of warmth and gentleness.
I spilled coffee again.
Leo said, slightly embarrassed. Erina smiled, a gentle but alluring smile.
Let me help you,
she said. Erina took a handkerchief, carefully wiping the coffee stain on the report. She had become Leo's indispensable assistant, not only in work, but also in life. He unexpectedly pulled Erina closer, causing her to lose her balance and fall into his arms. Erina, unable to react in time, instinctively wrapped her arms around Leo's neck to maintain her balance. Leo, feeling the softness and warmth of Erina's body, smiled. He wrapped his arms around her waist, holding her close. Leo cleared his throat. Lately, there's been quite a bit of feedback from female employees about the impressive accents on your office attire.
Is that so? I'll keep that in mind. Perhaps they should wear office attire more often, when at home with their husbands.
Before Leo could react, Erina placed a kiss on his lips. A gentle kiss, but full of provocation. Erina winked at Leo, then gently released his hands, walking towards her desk. Leo, stunned for a moment. So, Leo said, his voice somewhat shaky, am I still being controlled, after all? Erina turned to Leo, winking mischievously.
If you wish for that, I am ready, boss.
And then, the two of them, together, began a new working day, full of challenges, opportunities, and the quiet hope that HR wouldn't get involved with the noises in the room.